Today is Monday, 27th of October, 2025. Today is the day the final results and the winner of the Cameroonian presidential elections is to be announced. But before today, this weekend has been or seen the worst attack of Paul Biya in a long while on the Cameroonian people. The people from Friday started a protest against what was circulating as provisional results on social media in favor of Paul Biya and the shutdown of the internet. They protested. The people didn't take it lying down, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, I told you Paul Biya had shut down the internet because he feared the youth were organizing themselves online. Well, all of that is still happening. Now, since Friday to today, 4 people have been gunned down by security forces in Cameroon and dozens arrested. 4 people have been killed, ladies and gentlemen. Many roads have been blocked by the protesters in the capital and tires set ablaze all weekend. But that hasn't slowed down Paul Biya's intentions, ladies and gentlemen. He has rather charged the security forces to go about arresting key people in the opposition parties. For instance, 2 top figures in the Union for Change political platform that endorsed candidate Issa Chiroma Bakari and is claimed to have defeated Paul Biya have been arrested, ladies and gentlemen. The treasurer and other members of the African Movement for the New Independence and Democracy political party in Cameroon have also been taken by local security forces. Ladies and gentlemen, many other arrests are happening, all meant to break the will of protesters and the youth, and to deter the youth of Cameroon from rising. All these incidents have happened because Paul Biya wants to stay in power till death. He has no intention of ever leaving office so long as he lives, and his party, his political party, is in full support of it. Ladies and gentlemen, his party fully supports his actions. His party is actually accusing the opposition heads of trying to disrupt the elections. Ladies and gentlemen, this level of insanity is never seen before, but it is what is going on in Cameroon right now. They have released the police on the streets of the capital and in other major cities with firearms and live bullets ready to fire at anyone who shows up on the streets to protest. They used to only fire tear gases, pressure water, and rubber bullets, but it appears they've moved on to live ammunition. The 92-year-old man will not relinquish power. He will rather see lives taken and cities burned, including businesses and shops shut down, than to see himself out of political power. This is the height of power drunkenness in Africa and in Cameroon. And today all ears and eyes are to the ground in wait for the final results declaration. AU meanwhile seems unconcerned and aloof. Ladies and gentlemen, when the election results are announced today, one of 2 scenarios is likely to unravel in my estimation. Now, I'm making these 2 predictions on the backdrop that Paul Biya has already stolen the elections, ladies and gentlemen. Per the provisional result that surfaced on the internet, Paul Biya was leading by 53% of the votes. Therefore, when the final declaration of the result is out, the first likely scenario I foresee coming is this. The results are declared and Biya is declared winner, and hell breaks loose on the streets of Cameroon in a more violent protest, which ends up seeing more lives taken, and eventually Paul Biya's government comes under attack by the youth and the international community. As to whether Paul Biya will give up or not, that's the topic for another day altogether. But I don't really foresee any elements of the Cameroonian army join in this protest. I don't. But I wouldn't rule it out all the same, ladies and gentlemen. And I say this because of the level of control Paul Biya has over the military and the police heads. The 92-year-old man is in complete domination of the security forces at the management and supervisory levels across the country, which I will explain in a jiffy. But I see the opposition leaders lead in a massive protest which sees the country brought to a halt for a couple of days. Now, this is how Paul Biya dominates the military and the police service. It is a well-known fact that the people who are actually appointed as heads of the security forces swear their allegiance to Paul Biya directly and not to the state. And the majority of them are his own people, ladies and gentlemen. So the only time you will see the participation of any member of the Cameroonian army in support of the protest or protesters will most likely come from a junior rank. And I wouldn't be surprised when that happens, because that has happened in other parts of Africa where junior ranks break ranks to topple governments. I really and genuinely wish it doesn't come to this. I wish Paul Biya isn't declared the winner today. I wish today is his last day as president of Cameroon and he retires in peace. And I wish nobody dies because of this election. But I know, ladies and gentlemen, that wishes are not horses. I know that change doesn't come by itself or on a silver platter. I know what happens when people are tired and can't take it anymore. That's how far buttons have been pushed so far. And it is so tricky and in such a tricky situation, and anything can happen starting today. But this is my prediction, ladies and gentlemen, that Paul Biya ends up being declared winner again, and a higher level of violent protests unravels. The whole world will be watching. AU will convey an emergency sitting, and Paul Biya will insist he won the election and therefore wouldn't want any interferences. Ladies and gentlemen, this is most likely going to happen starting from today, ladies and gentlemen. But on the other hand, in my second scenario, Paul Biya is declared winner again, and he sends out the army and the police into the streets on the instructions of shoot to kill whosoever shows up to protest or demonstrate. This scenario, ladies and gentlemen, is quite probable. Already 4 people have been killed. 4 Cameroonians have died in this cause, and nothing shows Paul Biya won't do even worse. Paul Biya is ready to do whatever it takes to secure his 8th term in office. As I speak to you now, the Constitutional Council of Cameroon will issue the validated results any time from now. And I have the feeling, ladies and gentlemen, that Paul Biya has already given the command to the police and the military forces to be in positions. He fears the situation of Madagascar. He fears the situation of the Sahel region, and he's definitely going to go all out to protect his stay. It's depressing, folks. Very, very depressing. Africa takes 1 step forward and 3 steps back. This should have never happened, never been the case. I feel so sorry for the families that have lost their children to this cause. The wives who have lost their husbands for this cause of a new Cameroon. Their deaths, under no circumstance should it be swept under the rug. Paul Biya must account for their deaths. All over in Africa, leadership gives command and lives are taken and they walk around freely. No repercussions, no actions for their decisions. Even till now, Joseph Kabila still believes he should come back to office after all the deaths that occurred under his regime in the DRC. What kind of continent is this? I hate coups. I dislike it totally, but I understand why it happens after all the research work I've done in Africa. Sometimes it becomes the only option. Sometimes it's better you go on the offense than suffer defending. But I will end here and wait for the final announcement of the results. I wish the youth and the protesters of Cameroon all the best. And we'll be back after the results are mentioned. Ladies and gentlemen, may God help us all. My name is Cyrus, and this is Tuntum Network in Accra, Ghana. Be sure to subscribe and click on the bell for more of my video. I'll see you in the next one very soon. It is bye-bye for now.